Hey guys, Kenny here. I'm here to do a review of the 1990 science fiction action thriller, also mystery, Total Recall. What I have here is the special limited edition DVD that was released in 2001. I really don't think this would be available now since it's limited, and and the DVD comes in the Moon tin case. And this is just a really good movie itself. Obviously, most of you know what the story is about, but if any of you don't, I'll try and do a rundown of it. It's kind of confusing. Uh, it has to do with this, I think, like some brick, uh, or some could like a construction worker, Douglas Quaid. He wakes up from having this horrific dream that he and this woman were on Mars, and then he tumbles down and breaks his. They're in these astronaut suits on Mars, and then he breaks the glass shield that's in front of his eyes or over his face, and once that happens, his eyes start bugging out, and then his tongue starts protruding out big time. And as we go through the story, we find out that he had been to Mars once before, but not as Douglas Quaid, but as some guy named Hauser. He was on there as Hauser once before, but his memory got wiped clean of that. And his wife is never, that is presumably his wife, played by Sharon Stone. She's there to make sure that this implant that the company Recall that she's working for put in his mind to make sure that his memory doesn't crack. And he goes to Recall. Um, he gets the Mars package, and then he gets the shot in his arm. Then he starts dozing off to sleep, but before everyone there at the Recall knows it, he wakes up, and then he's gone crazy, grabbing the guy who had told Douglas about the program in the first place, starts grabbing his neck, almost breaking his neck completely. And Douglas was in this chair that they were that he was going to get the implant in, and his right arm broke out of the like, it's not a cuff but the strap that was over his head, and he grabs that guy with his right hand. And then that's when the story really starts to take off, because he says, my name is not Quaid. And then uh, that's when the whole story kind of unravels. Well, not unravels, but his world starts unraveling around him. Like his wife, he thought was his wife, turns out not to be. She was there just to make sure that the implant put in his mind didn't stayed, and that he didn't remember what had previously happened. And there's this guy who's also hunting Quaid, played by Michael Ironside, and he's trying to get him to this some uh, some high boss on Mars, played by Ronnie Cox. His Ronnie Cox's character first, he wants to get Hauser onto Mars first before he's actually killed. But that Michael Ironside just wants to kill him off completely because Sharon Stone's character, that is Hauser, Douglas Quaid's fake wife, he's she's Michael Ironside's character's lover. So Michael Ironside's character has a personal vendetta against Douglas Quaid. So then we find out a little later that Quaid has this bug in his in his skull, and that's how uh, Michael Ironside's character and these other Pete guys that are working with him find out where he is at each time, and then Quaid gets this briefcase, and then he sees some kind of like a computer in it, and then he sees himself, but it's not Quaid, that's Hauser he's looking at, and Hauser walks Quaid through this. He's how to get that bug out of his skull. He gets this bug, some kind of a thing that goes into his nose. Oh, and as it go, oh, that's an excruciating scene, but it's very believable because the head, it obviously was a puppet, but it looks so real that you thought it was actually happening. And then they pose it out, and you start seeing the red of the bug ball coming out of his nose, and then it pops out. And then Quay puts the bug, and then in this piece of chocolate, and gives it to one of the mouse that's around him. And then Michael Ironside's character and the other people, the other guys that are working with him, start shooting around because the bug is moving around. But what they don't know is that it's not in Quaid's head. Some mouse has it, and he gets to Mars, and what he has to do is try and save the people on Mars from dying off because the environment on Mars is toxic to them, and some of them in their closed off buildings, some of them weren't completely protected, so their faces started to change. And there's this one really adorable looking girl that, even though her face is deformed, you still can't help but feel attached to her. And as the story goes along, we find out that Ronnie Cox's character is keeping the people in isolation. He's not giving them air. And there's this some kind of an alien thing that Quaid had puts his hand on at the end scene, and then that makes this some kind of a mountain explode, start protruding air out, and that's the fresh air that the people on Mars need. And then they all can finally breathe clean air, and we don't know if what all the Quaid experienced on Mars was a dream or if it actually happened, because if it was a dream, he could still be in that recall chair, and then they could lobotomize his brain. So, Total Recall, such a well-made action movie, and the music is gorgeous. I think it was by Jerry Goldsmith, may rest in peace. And now to move on to something else about Total Recall. I know there's a remake coming, and that really does upset me. How the hell can the people that are working on this remake make it any better than the original? That one had great effects, and they think the remake could have better effects, so stay cool and roll out